Good afternoon and welcome to my first webinar. And today we're going to be talking about the 7 steps in a professional sales presentation. And I do want to say I appreciate everyone being on the call today. Believe it or not, we got people here from all over the place. We got people from the West Coast up north. Certainly a lot of people from Florida are on the call today, and I do really appreciate this. These webinars are free till the end of the year. We've got 2 more coming up. I think the next one's going to be like December 4th, I think it is, which is a Thursday, I believe. So anyhow, you'll get more notification on that, but it's going to be, the next one's going to be on asking for the order, how and when to ask for the order. So we'll be giving you a lot of details on that one. That'll be coming up really soon. That's going to be really, really good, I think, and I think a lot of people will get a lot out of it. I know some of the workshops I've done around the country in the last few months, that was a very, very important topic that a lot of people wanted to discuss. So anyhow, again, I want to thank you for being on. We've got people from all over the place. We've got people from the medical field, from the security sales. I've got 1 or 2 people that from cable companies that are on the call today. Car salespeople are on this call. We've got, I think, way over 50 people now that have signed up to be part of this today. So I'm glad that you're part of it, and hopefully that hope this will be worth your time today. We're going to move very quickly today, so I hope you'll take some notes. You won't really have a whole lot of time to ask questions today, but if you'll email me, I'll be happy to get right back to you right away on this stuff. So let me know if you have any questions, and I'll be happy to do this. So a lot of you have never met me before. I promise you I'll do this. I'll try to make this as interesting and so it's not boring for you. And hopefully you'll get some value out of this today. So take a few notes as we kind of get through this, okay? Now, the reason I believe in a pre-planned sales presentation, because when I first got into sales, I mean, I was like most people I think out there today, I was just kind of winging it. I would visit my prospect and just talk about whatever is important to them or whatever came up. And hey, I made some sales. And as I travel around the country and I work with companies, I see the same thing still going on where people, the salespeople go out and they have really no agenda. They're just kind of going out and shooting from the hip and doing okay, but they could do much better if they got organized. And I was fortunate enough to have a meeting in New York years ago with some really, really top salespeople from around the country. And we put together this process, this pre-planned presentation program. It was actually about 9 steps, I think, and throughout the years, I've kind of modified it to fit what I do. Because it was a little bit long, a little bit cumbersome, I think, with the 9 steps. So we've cut it down to 7, which seems to make a lot of sense and gets the job done. You sell more sales, bigger sales, and you get referrals if you'll follow this program. So after doing this thing a few thousand times, I think, in fact, I know it's been way over probably 4,000 or 5,000 times I've done this presentation. It does work. You got to work the plan, and the plan will not fail you. So let's get with it, and let's kind of talk about the 7 steps in a professional sales presentation. So take a few notes here as we get through this. Step number 1, of course, is the pre-sale warm-up. The goal here is to sell yourself and to get obviously the prospect to like you. One of the goals here should be to find something you have in common with your prospect. Man, if you can do that, you're way ahead of the game. And there's a little clue here that I've always used. I know on my presentation, I had a little presentation folder and I had all my paperwork and brochures and stuff in there that I used. And on the flyleaf of that thing, I had these 3 letters put in. I had FOR, family, occupation, and recreation. And these were reminders to me to create conversations, words I could use and topics I could use to get my prospect talking to me. And I can promise you, if you will remember that, family, occupation, recreation, if you'll just mention that in your conversation during this warm-up time, which is so important, you'll find something you have in common with your prospect. Maybe you go to the same church, or you've got your kids go to the same school, or they play sports together, or something, whatever. Where the guy works, you have friends that work there, or maybe you both like to play golf or tennis or whatever. But you'll find something there that you'll have in common with your prospect if you use that technique. Make sure you're enthusiastic and you have fun. on this time. Don't get right down to business. Someone asked me one time, well, how long does this warm-up time take? Hey, as long as it takes. As long as your prospect is talking and they are involved, and it's fine. Make sure that you ask a lot of questions that are not related to your product. Keep the conversation going. That's really how you control a conversation, is simply by asking a lot of questions, okay? And so you want to make sure that you make it all about them. I tell folks all the time, look, if you're talking to your prospect and this guy's talking about, maybe he's a fisherman and he caught a 10-pound bass, last week or whatever, man, don't top it with your 11-pounder. Let them win. Okay, make the focal point all about them. And the goal here also is to eliminate what we call the FUD factor. That's fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So you're perceived to be incapable of deceit. Now, remember, this quote at the bottom is very, very important. If you don't get anything outside of this first step, remember this: people buy from individuals, not companies. They'll buy because they like you, they trust you, and they feel like you're a very honest individual. Okay, you're perceived to be incapable of deceit. Now, later on, we're going to talk about referrals. And whenever I have a salesperson tell me that they've had a difficult time pulling referrals, I go back to step number one. Sometimes I think some people don't get referrals because they're not referable. They weren't likable enough. So your prospect or your new customer may feel uneasy about sending you to visit their friends, neighbors, or relatives. So be referable. Take some time, slow it down here. Okay, step number 2 is the questionnaire, or what we call information gathering time. And your goal here is to find the dominant buying motive. Sometimes that's referred to as the hot button. Okay, now keep in mind this quote at the bottom I put down here. I put these little quotes in here sometimes to kind of keep you on track. Remember, you can't proceed to the next steps of the presentation until you have completed this part. Okay, so we want to find what the hot button is. Why are you talking to this prospect? If you're selling cars, what are they looking for and why? Okay, if you're selling security systems, I mean, they're all coming in different shapes and sizes. Don't assume anything when you get in there. So ask specific questions. And in fact, I recommend that you have a form, a pre-written form with questions on it. And maybe you either have it memorized or you have a hard copy like I use, and I just go through a list of about 15 questions, maybe 20 questions. That keeps me in control and is interesting to my prospect also. So when you hear the answers to these questions, make sure you listen like a detective to stay on track, okay? And listen not only to what they say, but how do they say it. Watch their body language, okay? Do not assume anything when you're asking these questions. Make sure that they're giving you good answers. Be careful of vague answers. Sometimes, in fact, if I'm selling a security system, I may ask these folks, well, tell me about your schedule. Do y'all travel out of town much? And they may say, well, no, not really, not that much. But if you dig into it, you may find out they have a vacation home in Florida or somewhere in the mountains that they go to several times a year. But to them, in their mind, it's not that much. So dig in a little bit here and make sure that you don't accept vague questions. Now, also make sure you don't go into much detail on your product or your services at this time. That comes later, and you'll get way sidetracked and you will get way out of control here if you start talking about products and things. You'll kind of introduce some of those things sometimes. You may ask your prospect, have you ever thought about this, or have you ever considered maybe going this way? And they may try to sidetrack you by saying, well, that's great. Well, how does that work? Okay. So don't ask that question yet, because in a little while you're going to go through that. And certainly do not quote prices at this time. Stay in control. Don't get involved in quoting prices yet. You're going to open up a can of worms and you're going to have problems. Step number 3, a very important step. This is when you prove to them why your company is good and why they should choose your recommendations. Okay. So tell us what's great about your company, and most importantly, can you prove it? Can you prove that your company is the best? Here's a couple ways I think you can do that. One is have some reviews. Remind them about your internet reviews. Make copies of them. Show people, what the community is saying about your company. Next, I've seen some companies have great success with this. they post some logos, maybe on their tablet or maybe just a hard copy, where they'll have several of these posted on a page, logos of their most popular commercial accounts or customers. So people can refer back and say, oh, you protect McDonald's, or you work with this individual or this company. So that adds a lot of credibility and helps prove that your company is great. Brief letters of recommendation are also really good sales tools. Again, you're proving not only the people aren't just taking your word for it, they're taking the recommendation of other people. Now, also at this time, on this step number 3, you're going to demonstrate your product. And this is an important, very, very important step. Obviously, this is when you're really in your sales mode now, okay? You're using descriptive adjectives to describe how cool, how great your company, how great your product is. And you're putting some enthusiasm into it. You're getting excited about it, because this is a selling time, man. You've got to be on your A game right here and relax and smile a lot and sell this stuff. If you can, put the product in your customers' hands, even if it's just a brochure, man. Hand the brochure to them. Don't hold it and point at it. Okay, you're able to sell their intelligence. So let them touch it, feel it, if possible. I mean, if you're selling cars, you'd never sell a car without letting somebody test drive it. Well, you want to do the same thing with whatever you're selling. Now, here is when you do want to go into detail on the product. Okay, so you want to go in as much detail as possible, but make sure you're using language that your prospect can understand. If you complicate things too much and you make it sound too complicated, they won't buy and they won't tell you why. So make sure that you're using vocabulary words and terminology that everyone can understand. I was on a sales call recently up north, and I saw us lose a sale with a good prospect, small business, because the sales rep got off on talking about megapixels on the camera, how many megapixels each camera had. And the gentleman we were talking to owned a retail business, and he knew nothing about cameras, certainly nothing about megapixels, and it confused him, it scared him, and he just nodded his head and smiled, and we asked for the order, and he said, well, you know, let me think this over for a while. And obviously he was very confused. Your prospect is not going to raise their hand in most cases and say, wait a minute, what does that mean? I mean, this terminology you're using. So keep it simple and make it easy for your prospect to use your product and to buy your product, okay? So remember this is a great rule of thumb all the time. Sell what it does, not what it is. You know, I'm here at my home in Florida right now, and I've got cameras all around my house. I can see my driveway. I can watch the front door, the backyard. You know, I know what's going on around my house, but I really don't like cameras. I don't think they look very good on my house. You walk up to my front door and there's this camera looking at you. That's not cool. So I don't care what it is. I want to know what it does. So that's when you're talking about your product. Sell the benefits and features, not necessarily the product. Okay. So, and at this point, again, also remember, do not quote prices at this point. Step number 4 is what we call the site survey, or maybe if you're selling cars, this could be the test drive. Okay. And you're also, again, you're in a question and answer kind of a situation here also. So you're going to determine specific areas where your product or your services might apply, okay? Now, let me say this. The last step we just went over was selling the company and selling the product or whatever. In some cases, you can reverse steps 3 and 4. You can invert those, okay? And so don't feel like you're locked into this particular order. But make sure you do this. So you want to do the site survey. You want to make sure you take all the decision makers with you. If somebody's test driving a car, you definitely want to have the family in the car or whatever. But you wouldn't want to have just throw the keys to the husband and say, hey, you drive and I'll sit here and talk to your wife. No, you want to make sure everybody's involved in this. So if you're selling a security system, you want to make sure that you have the husband and wife or the owners, or the partners, everybody involved in this site survey. Once in a while, I'll have maybe a gentleman will tell me, well, I'm going to sit here and finish up a little paperwork. You go with my partner, and y'all check it out and let me know. I try to encourage them to, hey, look, let's all do this together, because I know you're going to have some questions as we get into this. So as you walk through, as you're doing your site survey, then let's look for areas of concern. Be very listen carefully. You're going to do a simple drawing of the facility, of the building or the home. As you do the site survey, it doesn't have to be an architectural rendering or anything real fancy, just a simple outline, a square, and just indicate where your product may be going. Be sure to make lots of notes as you go through this. Obviously, and when you're doing this, you're also showing concern. You're doing your job as a real, sales consultant, not just a salesperson, okay? And as you do the site survey or the walkthrough, we call it, make sure you ask a lot of good questions and take good notes, obviously. And then make recommendations based on the prospect's interest. Now, this little walkthrough we're doing or the site survey can take some time sometimes because, you're asking questions like, have you ever thought about putting this particular product here or using this over here? Maybe if you're talking about cameras, you may do an outside survey of the property and you're showing them where cameras will go and how much they will cover. So you want to make sure that you're making a few recommendations, and this is a wonderful time also to do what we call trial closes. Now, I don't have time to get into trial closes today, but it's a wonderful, wonderful sales tool if you know how to use it. So the reason we do trial closes is because we're going to ask for the order in a few minutes, and you want to keep their head nodding yes as you go through this whole situation, this whole program. So when you finally ask for the order in a few minutes, the answer is pretty obvious. They've been saying yes the whole time you've been there, so let's just keep it up. And again, do not quote price yet. That's coming up in just a few minutes. So hang on to that, and we'll quote pricing right about this time here. So we're going to ask for the order now. Now, I put another quote here at the bottom of this page that's really, really important for you. Remember, people love to buy, but they hate to be sold. Nobody likes someone forcing something down their throat or trying to tell them, man, you just got to get this. We'd rather go out and buy something. So we're going to let the customer kind of be in control. So our goal here, obviously, is to make the sale. And one of my rules is I never ask for the order until I'm pretty sure I'm going to get a yes, okay? So if I feel like, man, if I ask for the order right now, they might tell me no, I'm not going to ask. So hold off, wait until you feel like you've got some good, strong buying signals and you think, man, I think they're about ready. I think this thing's about cooked. So I'm going to go ahead and ask the question now, okay? And I would recommend you provide several options, at least 2 or 3 options. So again, by providing options, they feel like they're in the driver's seat and they are buying, they're not being sold. Okay, so you're telling them, here's plan A, plan B, plan C, which one is most comfortable for you? And when you go through these options, man, make sure you slow it down and you go into great detail as you're doing these options, okay? So don't run through this real fast and assume they remember everything you've told them in the hour or whatever time you've been there. So slow it down, go into great detail here, and make sure that they're with you and they know what you're talking about. Because again, if you confuse them here, you're going to get a no, or you're going to get, I want to think it over, okay? Now, be assumptive when you ask for the order. Just, in fact, my closing line is usually this one. Here's how I ask for the order. I'll simply say, Mr. and Ms. Jones or Mr. Smith, here's 3 options. And I go through each plan, A, B, and C, or gold, silver, bronze, whatever you want to do it. But I go through the 3 options, and my closing question is usually this. Now, based on what we've learned so far, which plan is most comfortable for you? If you were going to make a buying decision today, would it be plan A, plan B, or plan C? And then you shut up. Do not speak, okay? The old adage says the next one to speak buys. So don't say a word. All right. Now, the next step, number 6. This is a big one, and a lot of people avoid this one like the plague. I don't know, some salespeople just don't get it. So we're going to take some time here and realize that, man, this is important. This might be one of the most important steps in your whole sales presentation. I can tell you story after story after story about where I have been on a sales call, made a little sale, didn't get a lot of commission on it, but they led me to something greater, something bigger. I've got so many great stories where this has happened to me in my sales career. So your goal here is to find your next prospect. And the easiest way to do it is sitting there visiting with a new friend and just asking them who they know. So and you want to make referrals part of every sales presentation you do. Just plug it in there, man. Don't and allow time for it. I try to allow at least 20 minutes of time for this particular step because this is so darn important to me. Okay, be assumptive. Assume they have a lot of friends, neighbors, relatives, other business owners that they can refer to you. And I learned this. I got this from Tom Hopkins, probably the world's greatest sales trainer. If you ask specific questions, you will get specific answers when you're asking for referrals. So instead of saying, who else do you know that may be interested in my product? What if you ask, well, tell me about this. Who's the person at your office that is a supervisor over you that may have an interest in this? Okay, so now you're asking about specific people, not about product. I would never say who in your neighborhood may have an interest. I might say, who is your neighbor on the right? Who is your neighbor on the left? What do you know about them? Tell me about family members, Mr. Jones, on your side of the family. Ms. Jones, how about family members on your side? In fact, I've got a list of about 15 questions I'd be happy to send you that are very specific that will help you get referrals. So I'm assuming I'm going to get a lot of referrals because there's something called a sphere of influence. These are the number of people that the average American knows. And that number is about 250. Now, we get that number from the funeral directors and the wedding planners. Now, I'm assuming that 250 probably represents men, women, and children. So let's just say that's 75 families. I don't think it's unrealistic to think that I should be able to get at least 10 or 15. I mean, think about your smartphone. How many people do you have on your contact list in your phone? If you're like me, you probably have well over 100. So assuming I'm going to get 10, 15 referrals is not a giant number. So think big, ask for them. I would make sure that you explain what's in it for them. Hopefully your company has some sort of referral bonus program or referral reward program for people that send you customers. And then ask them to fill out your referral form while you're finishing the paperwork. So you'll typically have a form, and I hope your company has one that you can just hand over to them and say, hey, while I'm finishing up paperwork, if you'll just go ahead and start on this, you might want to get your phone out and let's start with the A's on your contact list and go from there. Step number 7, which is our final step, and this is a really brief, short step, but I think it's important. We've all heard of buyer's remorse before. Well, our goal here is to remind your new customer that they have made a wise buying decision. It kind of puts them at ease, I think, when you take a minute and offer them a sincere thank you for putting their trust in you and in your company. Also, remind the prospect of what's going to happen next. Maybe it's the installation date of your product or some type of a confirmation call or whatever from the office. Remind them what's going to happen next. You don't want to give the feeling that, hey, I got your information, I got your check, and I'm out of here. No, slow it down a little bit right here. That sincere thank you, the reminder of what's going to happen next. And then something that's worked well for me is I always hand my new prospect or new customer a stack of business cards, at least 5 or 6 business cards, and ask them to pass those out if they would for me to their friends and associates. And then another thing that's really done well in our industry that I introduced a year or 2 ago, do a selfie thank you video. Just take a minute and pull off to the side of the road somewhere or get back to your office and take your phone out and just do a little video saying, Mr. and Ms. Jones, thank you so much for putting your trust and confidence in my company. I really enjoyed meeting y'all. And just a reminder that you'll hear from someone in our office within 24 hours, about installation or about scheduling or whatever. Again, thanks a bunch and good luck with your new home or your business. And send that little corny, non-professional video back to your prospect and or your new customer, and you'd be surprised the reviews that you'll get. People will say things like, man, I can tell I chose the right company. All right, those are our 7 steps. Went through it really fast. If you need this slide set, I'll be happy to send them to you. This PowerPoint presentation, I'll be happy to give you that to you. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me right away. I think all of you probably have my email address. Notify me or call me. I'll be happy to help you. If you'd like for me to come to your office and do one of my VIP programs, I would love to help. I've got some time available in late January and February. I think I'm going to be in Indianapolis the 1st of January, and then I've got to go to Chicago, I think, on another deal. And so I've got to have some time available coming up, so I'd love to help you. I promise you that the investment that you make in me coming will not nearly be as expensive as the value that you're going to receive. The value is going to far exceed the investment it would take to have me come and spend a couple of days with your sales team doing training on lead generation or overcoming objections, time management, how to ask for the order. All those kind of things are important. You're going to get notification probably right away tomorrow or the next day on our next workshop or next webinar that's coming up here in a few days. And hopefully you'll tune into that one. That's going to be really, really good. And you'll want to make sure you get that. If you have not picked up my book yet, if you are a sales leader and you have not bought my book yet, I recommend you check it out. Just go to Amazon.com and type in my name, Russ Ackerman, and the book will pop right up. And you can order the book. It's been a bestseller. I'm really pleased with how the sales are continuing to go. And so it's been a good help. All right, that's it for today. I hope you have enjoyed our time together. It has been it's been a lot of fun. I know we went through a lot of material in a hurry, and we will continue on with the next one in like 2 weeks. It's on a Thursday, okay? Y'all have a good afternoon. Again, thank you so much. Let me know if I can help you. Talk to you later. Bye.